Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar titled Evaluating Market Potential with Business Analyst Online. This webinar seeks to provide an introduction to Esri's Business Analyst Online web application that is intended to assist those working in a variety of sectors including realty, retail planning, economic development, and marketing, among others, to visualize and to evaluate potential sites for expansion, consolidation, or investment. During this webinar, we'll use the Business Analyst Online to perform a market evaluation for a new business venture. My name is Ian Greensmith, and I am a higher education analyst with the Education Research Group at Esri Canada. This webinar is designed to help teaching faculty achieve the following when implementing Business Analyst Online. So in this webinar, you'll learn more about accessing and navigating your way through the application as a named user. And we'll spend some time talking about named users and identity. But then beyond that, using a case study, we'll work through a market evaluation for a new business venture. This case will expose you to 3 tools within the application. The first being Smart Map Search, where a named user can define a set of criteria and query the map to refine their search results visually to reveal geographic boundaries. Following that, you'll compare these refined results by adding business data included within the application via the search business listings based on classification codes, so NAICS and the SIC codes as well. And then finally, once we've done that, then and we've identified our candidate sites, we'll generate some profile summary for each of these sites, so you can see the true reporting power that comes along with Business Analyst Online. To get to that point, it's probably beneficial for us to spend a bit of time understanding where Business Analyst Online fits in relation to other ArcGIS products that you may or may not already be comfortable teaching with. An example of some of the terms that will be used in the webinar are found on the slide here. Some of them relate to ArcGIS Online, which Business Analyst Online is built on top of, and others relate to the Business Analyst application itself. So it's worth briefly covering them. For those of you who are familiar with ArcGIS Online, anytime I refer to organization, this refers to your school's ArcGIS Online subscription. You've had access to that for the better part of 3 years now. Beyond that, the named user, these are unique IDs for students and teaching staff. An application, this is when I mention that term, I'm referring to a web mapping application. A group, so these are designed to tailor content and potentially restrict access to only certain named users. And on the flip side is Business Analyst Online, where your smart map is used to visually search. It's a visual search tool to review demographic variables at different census geographic boundaries. In the case study that we'll work through today, we're actually going to be looking at the dissemination areas in St. John's, Newfoundland. Business listings, these are the Dun & Bradstreet business and facility listings that come included with Business Analyst, or the actual Business Analyst suite of applications. So Business Analyst Online in addition to Business Analyst Desktop. And then finally, the summary reports. So these are demographic reports that are included within the application. For the uninitiated, ArcGIS Online is a collaborative cloud-based platform that allows named users in a subscription to use, create, and share maps, apps, and data as hosted services. ArcGIS Online is part of the ArcGIS platform, which you can use to extend the capabilities of ArcGIS for desktop. ArcGIS Server and any apps and web APIs, and even the runtime SDKs that leverage the platform. The platform itself has many different components. While ArcGIS Desktop is still the most common way to manage data, perform analysis, and produce cartographic outputs, The platform itself, through ArcGIS Online, can leverage the cloud to publish that data as hosted services, where once it's available as a service, there are a wide range of applications that can consume these services, thus creating an opportunity for wider dissemination across the campus and access through ultimately an application that's easier to use. Built on top of that, and that's actually what the graphic on the slide shows, is really where applications like Business Analyst come in. The Business Analyst suite of applications are built on top of existing ArcGIS applications. So Business Analyst Desktop is built on top of ArcGIS for desktop. Business Analyst Online is consumed as a service through a web browser, and then the Business Analyst Online mobile version is consumed natively through a mobile device. For today's webinar, I'll just be focusing on the application that's consumed through a web browser, but it is helpful to understand how things are connected as we work our way through the webinar. Being a named user within an ArcGIS organization gives you access to any of the content that either you or colleagues have shared to your organization on any device from any location. It's this identity that allows you to publish content, to join groups, and even create web maps and apps. And this is it's actually a crucial key, if you will, that relates to how you authenticate into the platform. And it doesn't matter what application or tool in the platform that you use. If you're going to be accessing ArcGIS Online services, you need to authenticate in with it as a named user. So, you must have these unique IDs, and so should your students. Moving on to really accessing the application, the Business Analyst Online is initially accessed through the ArcGIS Marketplace. The ArcGIS Marketplace provides your organization with a way to discover and access apps and data services to use within the ArcGIS platform. These apps and data are built to leverage and enhance what your organization can do with ArcGIS Online by including both fee and free apps and services from authorized Esri business partners, distributors, and Esri alike. I mentioned that I would come back to groups, and this is the slide where I really talk to you a little bit more about groups, and the first demonstration that I'll walk through will really hit this point home. Groups can be thought of as a building block within your ArcGIS organization. They allow you to share apps and content in a way that makes it easy to find because it's all related based on a specific subject, task, or application in the case of this web seminar. Once you procure access to Business Analyst Online from the marketplace, you share the application with a specific group and then define access for named users who will be using the application. So the workflow of getting access to the application and ultimately to your users is create the group, get the app from the marketplace, share the app with that group, and then invite users to that group. A quick note on roles and privileges within your ArcGIS organization. Just because you have access to the application does not mean you'll actually be able to use all of its functions. Tied to every named user that's part of an organization are roles. Now, some can be predefined and some can by default, and some can be customized. And there are a couple of things that actually need to come together for each named user invited into this group that has Business Analyst Online with it to be able to use it. The first is the named user has to be either a predefined role or a custom role that has publishing capabilities. These publishing capabilities also can come along. That's technically a privilege to be able to publish within ArcGIS Online. Additional privileges relate to being able to actually perform spatial analysis, to be able to geocode a table of addresses, to be able to geo-enrich your geographic boundaries with demographic data. All of these privileges need to be added to the either the customized role that you define for your students, or even define for yourself. And screenshots there on the bottom right, just the ones that are typically enabled based on the publisher and administrator privileges. And if you want more information about it, I'll make my slides available. So the links here are at the bottom. So if you want to learn more about roles and configuring roles, you're more than welcome to review that. To help illustrate this point even further, I'll start in ArcGIS Online, and I won't spend a lot of time here, but I really did want to at least show you at a high level how groups are organized. Now, I'm cheating a little bit. I already have access to the application. I've already created my group, and I've already invited users. But the point is that you should be able to see how groups are organized, how I get access to the application, and then ultimately invite people, whether they are required to accept the invitation or not. So second from the top here, I have a Business Analyst Online group, and a quick little description just says it's an application for access, or sorry, it's a group for access to the application. Once it refreshes, I'm in the group now, and you can see here that I've shared access to the application with 7 members, myself included, and then other members of the education and research team. Now, as the group owner, I can actually choose if the status is private, public, or actually just solely visible within the organization. I've left it to be private so that people actually can't find the group, but that is entirely up to the administrator or whoever created the group and how they decide to share it. So this is my group, and if we work our way backwards out of here, go to the marketplace. The marketplace at marketplace.arcgis.com is where you would actually come to search for the Business Analyst Online application, and you authenticate into the marketplace with your named user account. So this identity is transferable across different applications and really different websites as well, if that's an easier way for you to think about it. So you can see a wide range of applications and services that are even broken down by industry. A few months ago, we released a higher ed listserv post on the admin tools for ArcGIS Online. There's lots in here that you can find from business partners and so on. But we're really just interested in Business Analyst Online, so that's what I'm going to search for. So the application shows up here. I can click on it, read a little bit more about it. I can even click on View Item. Now, the item itself has been shared with a specific group. And you notice the URL up here at the top is no longer in the marketplace. It's at edu.maps. That edu ties to the Education and Research ArcGIS Online organization account. So from the marketplace, you procure the application, you share it with a group, and so on. So here's the application, and in the slides that follow, we'll move forward into other things that relate to using the application. So Business Analyst Online is truly a software as a service application that leverages ArcGIS Online. It is a hosted web application that's intended to assist GIS analysts and professors, teachers, and students who have interests in numerous business sectors related to realty, retail planning, and economic development, as I mentioned at the beginning. The terms that are here on this slide relate to some of the functionality that exists within it. Now, we don't have time to go through all of it today, but there is quite a bit that you can do with it, and even more that you can do with Business Analyst Desktop that we'll talk about next week. A note on the data that comes with Business Analyst Online. Much like you're familiar with Desktop GIS, An application is really only useful if the application works. And that's true, but the user must have reliable and accurate data from which you can define your criteria and answer any research questions that you have. In total, Business Analyst Online has demographic information for 137 countries. In Canada, Esri's partnered with Environics Analytics to offer a comprehensive set of demographic and lifestyle maps for Canadian data. This data includes recent demographic information such as total population, family size, household income, median age, and really a lot more. And one thing to reinforce, actually, is that since these variables are available as services, remember, this application is built on top of ArcGIS Online. Because it's built on top of ArcGIS Online, these data services can be leveraged through multiple components of the ArcGIS platform. And the best example of that is actually in the ArcGIS.com map viewer. So if you have some experience with geo-enriching your data, we ran a couple of web seminars last August that related to ArcGIS Online and geo-enriching your data. The options exist there. You can also geo-enrich through third-party applications like our Esri Maps for Office plugin. For this webinar, we're going to focus on a few of the capabilities that really illustrate the power of Business Analyst Online and apply it to a case study. But before I get there, I thought I would show you how you can actually review the data before you actually go in and start any of your analysis. And I'll just switch over here. So here on this web page here, we can actually review any of the demographic data that is available through ArcGIS Online. Now, I referenced before that Esri has made data variables available for 137 countries. Now, by default, it does start with the United States, and that's not a bad thing. You can actually go through and compare potentially cross-border demographic information that exists. But specifically, if we're interested in Canada, I can either choose from the drop-down menu and select Canada there, or I can just type in Canada. And it'll pop up. The screen will refresh, and now these demographic services can be browsed. You can at least see at a high level where what data comes included. So if we're interested in income, we can see, okay, well, there's a number of popular variables, but if you want to go even further, then it's possible to do that as well. And again, it's just a high level to show you what is included within it. Doesn't so much give you the opportunity to review it. To review the data, to work with the data, you need to authenticate in. And to do that, you need to be a named user. To help illustrate the capabilities of Business Analyst Online, and for the remainder of the webinar, we're going to use a case study for evaluating market potential of a new technology tutoring service targeted specifically at seniors in the St. John's, Newfoundland area. To help frame the case, in today's society, the ever-increasing presence of computer, mobile, and web technology is becoming more and more common. Children of the baby boomer generation, myself included actually, have benefited greatly from technological change and have been able to adapt. But there are some, and I stress some, not everybody, there are some members of the baby boomer generation and parents, in fact, of the baby boomer generation that may be slower to adopt and grow with the fast pace of this technology. According to the most recent Canadian census in 2011, Statistics Canada reports that the baby boomer generation, that is people who were born within or between the years of 1946 and 1965, represent roughly 9.5 million people, or 28.6% of Canada's total population. So to help address this slow adoption, computer and technology counseling service that really does target this senior population between the ages of 65 and 75 aims to launch, loosely titled Tutoring Technology for Seniors, or as I like to call it, TTS for short, this new venture hopes to provide technology training and services for those sections of the population that are not actively engaged with the internet or mobile technologies. So some of the criteria that we're going to be looking at is, one, the first one we want to look at is is this a unique proposition? Are there competitors out there? And we can do that quite easily with the business and facility search functionality that's built into this application. Beyond that, we're interested in total population. We're also interested in, as a subset of the total population, we're interested in the count of the population that are not actively participating in the labor market. So by looking at that segment, we're really targeting those who are retired, who are retired, or based on the projecting that we're able to do through the reports, see how these values could change. And lastly, we'll look at the median age for these dissemination areas, both for men and for women. Now, I can't take credit for the idea for this. This actually came from a student in Dr. Dennis Hanlon's entrepreneurship course at Memorial University. I will say that you can come up with your own methodology of how you would go about identifying target dissemination areas, but for the purposes of today's webinar, this is I think this is a pretty good and pretty clean way to illustrate the effectiveness and the functionality of Business Analyst Online. So with our case study now defined, the first thing we need to do is evaluate the competitive landscape to see if there are other companies doing the same thing. So to facilitate this in Business Analyst Online, you can search the business and facility listings that are provided by Dun & Bradstreet. So as I mentioned before, this is something that's available as a service in Business Analyst Online, but you would actually install directly on your computer if you were using the desktop version. You have the option to search either by name or by location if that's something you want to do. But if you truly want to refine your search, and that's what we're actually going to be doing today, you can actually search by either the North American Industry Classification System, or NAICS code, or the Standard Industrial Classification, or SIC code, that really do closely match what the tutoring technology for senior services is really targeting. And as it says on screen, these are the two codes that we'll be using are 61170 that relate to educational support services under NAICS, and then 8299 for the SIC code. So Business Analyst Online, as I mentioned, is a hosted web service. This service is a Flex-based application. Now, the direction that Esri seems to be going in really closely follows the JavaScript path, but this application predates the JavaScript shift, and I have a feeling over time it may get upgraded. But for now, just keep in mind that to run this application, you're going to need Adobe Flash installed on each machine. So I've authenticated in, and I can actually I can review my preferences here. Any preferences that I do have, for example, if I wanted it to default to Canada, I can actually set my country. I can even set any units. It totally depends on where I'm going to be doing my analysis. I can cancel out of here, and ultimately what we're interested in is seeing a map, setting our study area, and then adding business listing information to it. So to see the map, just like in the web map viewer, just click on Maps. The screen will change, and now you can see a layout that is very similar to something, really a hybrid between desktop and the web map viewer. So on the right-hand side, I have a number of tools that are available to me. I can actually, any map that I create, I can share directly in ArcGIS Online. I can zoom in and out. I can even pin specific locations. I also have an option to really what equates to a slider bar of different geographic boundaries, ranging from the province all the way down to the dissemination area. For us to set up our study area, we're going to click on this text box here, and we're just going to zoom set it to zoom to an area, and I'll type in St. John's, Newfoundland. Hit enter on my keyboard, and now the screen will refresh, and I can move things around a bit here as well. Now, I do want to ensure that any analysis that I'm doing, any information that I'm mashing up onto my web map, is at the dissemination area level. So I can hover over my slider bar again and just confirm, click dissemination area, and just confirm that that is the geographic boundary that will show up. If it is set to forward sortation area, the scale will change on the web map. That's functionality that we expect, but any demographic information that is collected is then aggregated to the forward sortation level, and if you can extrapolate that up all the way to the province. So working at the dissemination area level, we are interested in the business listings themselves. To get to that, under Map, choose Create Maps from Data, and here we have three options. Any of the tools that I'll show you actually do have corresponding videos, or the majority do anyways, and we also have videos available to show how this kind of stuff works, in addition to the recording that'll be made available tomorrow or next week. So under Create Maps from Data, just click on Business and Facilities Shirts. It'll bring up this sidebar. Now, here's where I mentioned where you can actually type in the business name. So I could type in McDonald's, I could type in Memorial University, I could type in school, and it would come back with all of any business name or facility listing that matched the search criteria that you input. Now, because we're trying to be specific and target a very specific classification code, I'll click into the SIC or SIC code box, and I'll just type in 8299, and I'll click Go. Quite quickly, it returns results. Now, a couple of things to notice, and they all have to do with what you notice on the left-hand side of the application. You can narrow things down based on the business name, and that makes sense for depending on what you want to do. But for this case study, we're really just interested in any business that exists in and around the greater St. John's area, so that being St. John's and Mount Pearl. So I'm not so interested in stuff that's happening in Conception Bay South or in Portugal Cove. So that's one way to restrict the results. Another way is to actually review what the classification code returns to you. And you can do that by looking at the code. So we know that, referring back to our case study, we know that we're targeting technology, and really it's an education-based program or an education-based service that we're offering. So to have results that show up relate to driver training or even music classes, for example, is not wholly representative of the competitive landscape. So we can actually also turn those off as well. And it actually does kind of reinforce the fact that, yes, you can further refine these classification codes right down to be very, very specific. And in the slides that I'll make available, I'll make sure that the links to these two classification codes, in addition to a corresponding tutorial that is just wrapping up, we'll reference the same thing. So we'll turn off fire school, and even so we've turned off there, and we'll leave the rest. So we know now that if we click on some of these options, so we see, okay, well, there's a Teachers on Wheels organization. We don't know a lot about it, and it's really more of a proximity situation that we're looking at right now. We're really just interested, okay, do the companies exist? And based on the classification codes, yes, they do. The next thing that we'll look at, and I'll transition back to the slides now, has to do with the other criteria that I've defined. So now that we have our competitors in place, we can look at the criteria that we have defined visually through the Smart Map search capability. The Smart Map search allows you to select up to 5 criteria. So the image here on the slide actually illustrates what we're going to be working through this afternoon. You can actually set your data ranges. So we know that we have slightly more strict rules on what we're looking for our criteria, where we can potentially set up these locations to tutor seniors. You have the option to review the results table and optionally export to Excel. And you'll recall, as I mentioned, the median age, but you'll recall that we're actually looking for total population, labor force participation, and median age. So I'll switch back over to the slides here, and now through the same functionality under Create Maps from Data, I'm going to click on Smart Map Search. And there are really a few steps that you need to follow just to get things up and running. The first one that you are going to look for has to do with the variables. So click Get Started, and you can see some basic categories that show up. I'm specifically interested in the jobs category. So the jobs category isn't listed, so to see all the categories, I just click on Browse All Variables, and then I know the jobs is off to on the next window here. Click on Jobs, and now it's going to reveal popular variables that exist, but I'm actually interested in labor force status. You can go down even further into the data, expand this. If I were to check this box off here, it would actually give me all of the variables. That can work in some situations. It's actually not going to work here because, remember, it only works for 5 variables. So that's why you want to be, or try to be quite specific in the variables that you select. There's no reason why it can't be an iterative process once you reach a certain result at the end, but for this workflow, we're looking for that segment of the population that is not in the labor force itself. I'll check that, and you'll see here that it gets added to my selected variables. Now I'll backtrack, and I am going to also add in population. So I'm interested in population totals. So we can look at the total population for 2014. We can add that in, and then backtrack a little bit more and go to age. Now under age, I'll be looking for popular variables. So, and the popular ones here relate to the median age for males and females. So I'll check both of those off, and now I've got 4 variables added into the map, or ready to be added into the map, and all I need to do is click on Map Variables. It's actually quite helpful to have the competitor listings here as well. But the next part of using the Smart Map Search, as it says in the top left-hand corner here, is to set your ranges. Now, for the sake of example, what I want to show you is how I can adjust the median age range for females to just to the lower limit of what we're looking for. So we're looking for the ages 65 to 75. So if I type in 65, you'll see, and I'll do it again, so you, or even ramp the histogram up just so you see the change, that the map itself will update. So this is this is something that we always talk about. We always talk about the relationship between spatial and attribute information. So now, based on the range of data, I can scale it right up until the year or the age that I want. And if I type in 65, I see that I have 3 options within my extent. And if I hover over them, I can see, okay, well, here are the results that I have returned. I have a total population of 552. The median age for females is 75. However, the median age for males is actually 57. Now, it's not to say that it wouldn't be a candidate site for this tutoring service in the future, but it's not a candidate site right now, at least for the methodology that we're following. So we can change that by going up and adjusting the male median age, and we'll just change that to 65. Now when we adjust that, we're working with a much smaller subset compared to how we originally started, and we have 2 candidate sites. And if I drag my cursor over this, and the same goes for even if the dissemination areas are not visible, you'll see here that the dissemination areas update and will tell you roughly what median ages are and the representative population. So I can see that the median age for this dissemination area is just over 68, while the median age for females is 72. Compared to our other candidate site, where my mouse there, where the median age for males is a little bit older, really just over 70, and then 78 for females. Now, this is a visual representation of it. If you did want to change it, or you change it, obviously you can do that just by adjusting the histograms. But if you want to see the table, then you can see that here as well, and it'll just give you the results that you're actually interested in, and you can export those to Excel. As a final step in evaluating our candidate sites, we can now turn our attention to generating some reports to justify any decision that we're going to make. In Business Analyst Online, reports can be generated from an individual site or from multiple trade areas. These reports provide historical, current, and projected information that can be useful for any business to improve forecasting and business planning. For our case, in TTS, we're going to actually use the demographic estimates and projections, or DEP, market profile that comes with Business Analyst Online. This report features authoritative estimates based on the 2011 Canadian census, and will actually provide these projections back from 2014 to 2009 and forward to 2019. These projections include, much like I had mentioned at the beginning of our talk, they include population, dwelling counts, average household income, income distribution, mother tongue, ethnic characteristics, and actually total expenditure as well. It's actually quite a comprehensive profile that gets included. So we'll switch back to our map for one last time. And what I'm actually going to do is, rather than going to our reports tab or defining areas for reports, it's a different side of the application that can be used for this. But because we're doing everything on the map already, I'll leave it as is. And what I actually want to do is actually just want to click on the individual dissemination areas. So again, it's going to show me the information that I've already seen, that I'm already comfortable with, and I'm just going to click on Get Reports. You'll see the screen refresh here, as well as it'll also refresh any of the competitor listings that are here. So we can see that a Sylvan Learning Center is actually quite close here. So that's a tutoring service that exists that can be perceived as a potential competitor. Although further research would be required as to whether or not they target seniors or a more senior population. So once I've selected it, I can actually choose the report that I'm interested in. Remember that we're interested in the demographic estimates and projections market profile, so I'll click on that. I have the option to either download it or run the report and have the output come out in PDF or in Excel format. I'll just leave it as PDF, and I'll run that report. So report runs. I'll click on report. Right now, based on the URL you can see here at the top, it's being stored in the cloud as well, and it's actually being stored on Amazon's S3 server. But separate from that, you can see that based on the input dissemination area, so that that's characterized as the 100100620, that quote-unquote name of the dissemination area can be evaluated. And we can zoom in. Oh, we'll zoom in here just to show you the projections. So, and ultimately a summary. So, based on our 2014 data, we can see here that if you go back, the population, there's obvious growth. But if you actually project 5 years ahead of time, there's a significant growth. So that's quite telling. You scroll down a bit and look at the dwellings. The dwellings actually are interesting as well. In 2009, projecting back, it's actually predicting or telling us that there were 0 owned dwellings in 2009, and the majority were rented. But in 2014, there are 21 owned and 304 rented. Project 5 years forward, and the number changes again. So that's also quite telling. There might, in the fact that there might be some other type of regrowth or regeneration happening in this area, that may not be specifically tied to the dissemination area, but really the land use classification and what's going on around it. As I mentioned before, we can see our household income, our per capita income. Related to our case study, though, and what might impact our decision is an interesting result regarding the median age. So if we solely left our methodology as median age across all dissemination areas between 65 and 75, if I did that in 5 years' time, this dissemination area would not be a candidate. It's a candidate now, and it was a candidate 5 years ago. But the median age is dropping. So that can mean that younger families are moving in, or younger people in general are moving into the area. And if the further down you go, you can actually see a number of household information related to it. Another interesting one here that relates to our case study has to do with, so you're looking at 2009 population by age 2014, and then on the next page, the 2019. So really from the 55 to 64 all the way up to the 75 to 84 gap, where these are really, I'd say, the numbers that we are interested in. And depending on how you wanted to readjust your methodology, that's entirely up to you, but interesting values nonetheless. Now, if we repeat this process, we'll zoom out a bit and come up to our second candidate. Click on that. We'll run the same report, and while that's running, I can actually switch over to the actual report here. I ran it just for the sake of time. I ran it ahead of time. For this report, again, you're looking at the exact same report, just applied to a different dissemination area. Population growth is a little bit less, but dwellings, you're seeing a much greater mix of owned versus rented. Also, the household income and median ages are different. So it actually does speak to the type, really the type of person that might live in this area. So these are powerful tools that really stemmed from defining the criteria that we were interested in, looking at the competitive landscape, identifying these candidate sites and then reporting based on that. Now, the options exist within the application to potentially run drive times. So you could generate drive times off of each individual candidate site, and then you get a much better sense of really what's happening outside of this dissemination area. So if you were going to locate a business either in this dissemination area or in the previous candidate, then you could see, okay, well, what's my draw for a 1-minute drive time, a 3-minute drive time, or even a 5-minute drive time outside of that dissemination area. This functionality exists within the application, but it's just for a time consideration, it's outside the scope of what we'll cover. So in summary, this webinar provided an overview of Business Analyst Online web application through a case study which focused on providing technology tutoring services to seniors. In the process, you learned how to get access to the application from the ArcGIS Marketplace and share it through a group, add business listings of competitors to get a visual sense of the proximity to your candidate locations, and then you flushed out your criteria for your candidate locations by searching for and refining that criteria to identify these locations for this new business venture. And finally, to provide justification for business planning purposes, you generated reports for each location that could actually be, well, we went through exporting it to PDF, but could also be exported to Excel for further comparison. And we also touched on briefly about additional options that exist, for additional analysis options that exist so for extending your analysis through drive times and the like. A reminder that the next webinar takes place 1 week today, titled Site Expansion Potential with Business Analyst Desktop. It has a similar intended audience to the webinar that those of you who are sitting in on today. Next week's session will provide an overview of the capabilities available within Business Analyst Desktop. So again, using a case study, but this time on a restaurant chain, a popular restaurant chain in St. John's, Newfoundland, to illustrate and discover how a user can quickly set up their analysis extent, add stored customer information, perform analysis, and retrieve those same demographic reports that will help them make informed business decisions. I want to thank you all for tuning in. A recording will be available in the next couple of days, but if you have any questions about the content covered today, you can feel free to contact me. My contact information is here on the screen. And again, thank you very much.